again, here we are right in the middle of spring, the beginning of spring, and oncoming summer. And tonight, again, I'm going to talk about a wide variety of West Australian wildflowers for the garden situation right throughout the state. And just to start it off is Eremophila marguerite, one of the poverty bushes. It's a beautiful little shrub. Grows to 1 metre, probably 2 metres under irrigated situation, but generally a metre, and it's a very good vase-picking one. The grey, you can see there, the strong grey foliage there, and the little lavender trumpet flowers. It's just starting to flower now, and it'll go on for many months. It's one of the longest flowering Eremophilas we have, and probably would be one of the first ones I would recommend to put in the garden. And like a lot of varieties of shrubs, it's best to start on an easy-to-grow one, and one that would give a good variety in the garden. And that particular one, Eremophila marguerite, is an exceptionally good one. Will grow in a wide variety of soils, so it's no problems, and would take a very hard to trim. So I would recommend picking it right from the time it starts flowering. From the Eremophila to Morrison, I've talked about the Verticordias quite a bit in the past, but this particular one, Verticordia chrysantha, one of the Morrison type or feather flowers, is probably one of the most attractive because it's a really low one. You could treat it as a ground cover almost, and it truly is one of the varieties that's given us the name for the wildflower state. Grows naturally from in the Geraldton region up that way, and it comes a little bit south in the wildflower area there, in the drier region. And it really is a good little plant. I would recommend to plant it in 3s or 5s in a natural group rather than just one. You get a greater effect, or use it as a border type around a shrubbery. It's a really good one for a gold feather flower. And probably doesn't dry as well as some of the other Verticordias, or as the true Morrison that I'll be talking about in the future program. That's Verticordia, one of the better Verticordias there in Chrysantha. And as I said previously, if you write these down, and you can get a good variety of flowers that would flower each month right throughout the year. And even though it is spring, by now I should have proved to you that in the last 12 months that you can have a good selection right through the year. And even though we are renowned as the wildflower state and it is only spring, that is untrue. You can have a good selection right throughout the year, and I will prove that again in oncoming months. I thought I'd talk a little bit and explain the different types of Grevilleas. There's a lot of Grevilleas, and probably no garden could be without a variety of them. There's such a wide variety of foliage, flower types and colour, and they'll grow in all soil types too, from ground covers to quite large shrubs. This particular one is Grevillea hookerana. You can see I couldn't put it in a vase. That's the way its flowers are. They're horizontal. So you can see there the red toothbrush flowers as they open, and they just continue to go 2 or 3 inches there, and the branches come out of the shrub horizontal. That's a really good one, flowering late winter right throughout spring. Now that particular one definitely needs a prune after it flowers to thicken it up. And like a lot of these flowers, don't be afraid to prune them if you want to prune them. Not that you have to prune them, but if you do prune them, after they flower, you'll get maximum amount of new growth, and it will give you the majority of flowers for the following year. If you prune them, you'd tend to get a lot of new growth, and you eliminate the fertilising. A lot of people think that it's looking a little bit straggly or sick, and give it a bit of fertiliser. But in the natural habitat, they don't get a lot of fertiliser, so they would have the dormancy and would go right through the normal growing time. So it'd be better to give it a light trim than fertilise it. That one, again, is one of the toothbrush Grevilleas. But as I said, there's a wide variety of Grevilleas, and or spider flowers. And you can see this one, Grevillea crithmifolia, is again a very good one. It grows right along the coast, in pure beach sand even. That's how versatile this particular species is. And as I've said, even though they grow, I've said that they'll grow in, say, beach sand. That doesn't mean you can only have to grow them in beach sand. They're so versatile, a lot of these, that you can grow them back into, say, clay. They won't. Most of these will grow in all soil types. the Grevillea crithmifolia comes, generally grows to about 2 feet, 2 metres rather, but there is a form that only grows low, say 1 to 2 feet high and about 3 or 4 metres across as a ground cover. So there are a lot of different forms in, even though a plant, they don't always stay recommended to stay in the one size. You can get them in large shrubs, and that's the one species, and low-growing forms. So it's a good versatile little plant, late winter, spring flowering one in Grevillea crithmifolia. So that'll just show you the variety of flowers in the Grevilleas. This particular one, I'm going to talk about the gelatin wax later, but this one is the Walpole Wax from down Albany Way on the south. But it's been in cultivation for many years now, and it's a very upright, almost pyramid-shaped shrub, and displays these dainty little white flowers. It's a very neat little shrub. For someone that doesn't like, a lot of people say some of our natives or wildflowers are a little bit straggly. Well, if you don't like that type of gelatin wax that does grow a little bit untidy, well, this one is so neat you don't need to trim it at all, ever. It's just, even if you trim it, it would tend to spoil its shape. It's just like a little pyramid to 2 metres, 1 to 2 metres. And as I said, displaying these dainty little white flowers. So it is a wax. Its common name again is the Walpole Wax. As yet it hasn't been botanically named, but botanical name is Chamelaucium, but just Walpole Wax is suffice. That's available all over now, so it's a very popular one in the nurseries. It's grown in all soils. It will grow in a little bit of shade. Most of these they'll all grow in full sun, but I will mention them, the ones that will take a little bit of shade. A lot of people have been saying they'd like shrubs that will grow low and in semi-shade, so I'll try and emphasise if their ability is to grow in full sun and a bit of shade, and that one will grow in semi-shade, the Walpole Wax. As in the last one I didn't mention, Grevillea crithmifolia will grow in semi-shade also. This little one here, I did in the last program mention Kunzeas, but generally they are a bottle brush, the Kunzea types, Kunzea porcula and Kunzea baxteri. But this little one, dainty little one here, almost like a pink myrtle flower, is Kunzea pauciflora. Though it comes from down south again, it's growing very well. All these ones here I picked out of the garden, and as mentioned again before, they're only 2 years from very small plants, so there's a good example of that you can do it in your own garden anywhere in the state. And the only difference I'll mention there, if you're in sand, they would tend to grow a little bit bigger. Say in the Perth deep sand situation, the plants would tend to grow twice the height. Compared to, say, clay, they would only grow, say, 1 metre, whereas this one naturally would grow, say, 3 foot. In our Perth sands, you get 3 foot in its second year. So you definitely get almost 2 metres here. But if you require to keep it low, you can trim it down after flowering. But there's a good example here. We've had such a warm winter. Normally that the plants would flower and the growth would stop. But you can see all this new growth here just racing away after the flowers. That just shows how warm the winter has been. And all this spring growth, it wouldn't normally do that until after it's flowered. I'll just repeat that again. It's so good, that little shrub, Kunzea pauciflora, that it grows about 1 metre high, 1 metre across, and if you can't get hold of, say, a pink myrtle or something like that, that's a very good little pink, dainty pink shrub, Kunzea pauciflora. Now, as it's spring, I thought, well, I'd have to bring one kangaroo paw in and talk a little bit about it, but probably the least of all that would be talked about would be the black kangaroo paw. And I would say probably, even though the red and green one is our state emblem, the black one is equally as famous, I think. I could probably start off talking a little bit about the flower, the individual flower there. We could probably get a close-up of it. You can see there the paw, why they're called the kangaroo paws. You can see the formation of the paw there. It comes out black to start, almost like soot there. All those fine little hairs, and as it opens up, you can see the green part there. And the interesting thing with the paws, the birds, honey eaters, pollinate them, and they land on it, and they put their beak in there, and the pollen gets on the forehead there of the head, and they just jump around and pollinate them all. So that applies to pretty well all the kangaroo paws. That's how they're pollinated. And so if you want to attract the birds to the garden, I would recommend planting all kangaroo paws, the whole lot of them, the whole 8 varieties are all good, and preferably in groups. So that explains the close-up of the formation of the flower. Well, there's an example of a plant. The only disadvantage probably of the kangaroo paws is that they do get a little bit, you can see there, they get a bit of this ink disease on it, this blackening. It's called ink disease, and it is natural to them, so it does occur naturally in the bush, so don't worry about it a great deal. But the least amount you water them, once established in the garden, the least amount you overhead water them with sprinklers, the less damage you'll get on the foliage. And if you have got it on the leaves and you do want to spray it, you can use one of the zinc fungicide bases. But I think the less spraying you do in a garden, the better. That applies to most things like pruning. The best thing to do is to select the plant for the conditions. So, decide where you're going to put it and plan it a little bit so you don't have to make a lot of work. It should be a lot more leisure than working. But back to that ink disease, as I said, it is natural. It's more prevalent on the red and green kangaroo paw than the black, but get them and keep them a lot drier and harder than that. So that just explain the formation of it. They have one palmate type like that, but this is in the pot. But in the garden, as soon as you plant it out, it will shoot away from the base. So, but you don't. One thing about kangaroo paws, don't plant them any deeper. Only plant them the same soil level as there. Some plants you can plant deeper, but this one I would plant the same level in the black kangaroo paw. So there, that's just a little bit of more information on it. On picking it, if you did vase pick it straight away, there you'll find it will flower again from these fine leaves up here. So if you picked it high, you'd get another bunch of late flowers on it. So again, vase picking is good for the black kangaroo paw. As mentioned previously, a lot of people have been asking for been a lot of requests for low growing shrubs, and this particular one is no exception in Calothamnus villosus. It's a very good low one. You can see the nice soft foliage, only grows up to 2 or 3 feet, no more than a metre, and about a metre across. A good low growing one. And to see the flowers on that, you'll have to turn it upside down. You can see the buds there, and as they flower on the old wood, you can see the little core red bottlebrush flowers there, and that's why it's called the one-sided bottlebrush. It only flowers on one side, and displaying these little claw flowers there. You can't see it as much, but it's a good one anyway, just for its low-spreading growing ability. Will grow in shade, will grow in all soil situations, and it's a nice soft foliage in that little one-sided bottlebrush. Then from those, I thought I'd show you some of our mountain bells are just starting to flower now, and the Darwinias. This one is Darwinia meeboldi, and there's another one, Darwinia leiostyla. With the Darwinias, even though they're very spectacular, you'd have to treat them in a similar situation to the Baronias. They do like a bit of summer moisture. So if you are going to grow the Darwinias in, say, the Perth situation, just pick a nice cool spot for them in the Darwinias. And to end the program tonight, I thought I'd talk a little bit about the gelatin wax. As I've said previously, I did say it 12 months now since I've been doing it, because I started on the gelatin wax. They are not red, they are more a plum purple. This is, I'll just show you the several selections there in gelatin wax. It's University there is the darkest. Probably the largest selection of them is Dowell selection. There, nice big pink. Purple Pride is probably one of the darkest plum colours. Comes out there with that. And Numericara is a very nice, probably the nicest of the vase picking, although they all vase pick, and a white, little bit of a white one there. So there's, and the main thing about the wax, to get the best out of them every year, you'd have to give them a hard prune. So prune them very hard after they flower, and again in probably January, and I might mention it again then. So there's a few handy hints. So until next time, good gardening.